Did you know that the largest wars in history involved millions of people, spanned entire continents, and altered the course of civilization forever? Today, we're diving deep into the largest wars mankind has ever witnessed, from devastating global conflicts to century-long power struggles. Throughout history, war has been a constant. From ancient times to modern day, human civilization has been defined by conflict. Sometimes over territory, other times over ideology. But what were the largest, most impactful wars ever fought? We're about to explore wars that stretched across the globe, lasting years, decades, and even centuries. Let's start with the most infamous one of all, World War II. World War II, lasting from 1939 to 1945, is often regarded as the largest and deadliest conflict in human history. More than 30 countries were involved, with fighting across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. What started as a clash between Axis and Allied powers eventually became a total war, consuming the world's resources and leaving devastation in its wake. An estimated 70 to 85 million people lost their lives, including civilians and soldiers. This staggering number makes up around 3% of the world's population at the time. The war wasn't just a battle between armies, it was a battle for survival, as entire cities were bombed and millions were displaced. World War II also introduced new levels of destruction, from the Holocaust to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The consequences of this war are still felt today. It reshaped global power, created the United Nations, and set the stage for the Cold War. But what about the war that came before? World War I, fought from 1914 to 1918, was often called the Great War, the war to end all wars. It was a conflict on a scale the world had never seen before, involving over 60 million soldiers from Europe and beyond. The war was triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, but it quickly escalated into a global conflict, fueled by tangled alliances and rising nationalism. One of the defining features of World War I was the brutal trench warfare. Soldiers lived in trenches for months, facing disease, cold, and relentless enemy fire. Over 16 million people, both military and civilian, died as a result of this 4-year conflict, making it one of the deadliest wars in history. The technology used in World War I was groundbreaking: tanks, machine guns, chemical warfare, and airplanes. But it was also the first war that saw the full horrors of modern industrialized combat. The war's end in 1918, with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, led directly to the conditions that sparked World War II just 2 decades later. Before the World Wars, Europe was torn apart by the Napoleonic Wars. From 1803 to 1815, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte sought to expand his empire across Europe. The wars pitted France against various coalitions of European powers, including Britain, Russia, Austria, and Prussia. These conflicts consumed the continent for over a decade. Napoleon's ambition and military genius saw him conquer large parts of Europe, but it all came crashing down at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Napoleon's defeat marked the end of his reign and led to a period of relative peace in Europe, known as the Concert of Europe. While the Napoleonic Wars were brutal, with an estimated 3.5 to 6 million deaths, they also had a lasting impact on European politics. The Congress of Vienna, which followed Napoleon's defeat, redrew the map of Europe and set the stage for the nationalist movements that would later sweep the continent. The Korean War, often referred to as the Forgotten War, was fought between 1950 and 1953. It began when North Korea, supported by China and the Soviet Union, invaded South Korea, which was backed by the United States and United Nations forces. This conflict was one of the first major confrontations of the Cold War. Despite the massive involvement of global powers, the war ended in a stalemate, with the Korean peninsula remaining divided along the 38th parallel. Over 2.5 million people died during the war, and the conflict technically remains unresolved to this day, as no formal peace treaty was signed. The Korean War was a pivotal moment in Cold War history, marking the first time that the United Nations took military action against aggression. The impact of this war is still felt in modern-day geopolitics, especially with the ongoing tensions between North and South Korea. The American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865, remains the deadliest conflict in U.S. history, with over 620,000 to 750,000 lives lost. The war was primarily fought over slavery and states' rights, pitting the Union, northern states, against the Confederacy, southern states. Beyond the staggering death toll, the Civil War had far-reaching consequences for the United States. It resulted in the abolition of slavery, the preservation of the Union, and paved the way for the country's eventual emergence as a global power. The American Civil War not only shaped the future of the United States, but also became a pivotal event in the global movement for human rights, signaling the end of legal slavery in the Western world. From the World Wars to the American Civil War, the largest conflicts in history have shaped the world we live in today. These wars taught us harsh lessons about the cost of human ambition, but they also paved the way for peace and progress. As we reflect on these historic battles, it's a reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of diplomacy in today's interconnected world. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history's largest wars. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into world-changing events on Fact Frenzy.